Greetings everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Ladies and gentlemen, today I want to take you through Python programming, which is introduction to Python. If this is your first time watching my YouTube channel, there is a link that I've already shared. I have already done some few videos on programming, particularly in the data science project. Ladies and gentlemen, I felt I should just actually start with the introduction to Python programming. Maybe like try to assist other people who are new in the field of programming, at least to understand how Python works and its interface, and other things. Ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, I want to take you through whatever I just indicated here. First of all, I need to explain actually what is Python and how does it works. How can one be able to use Python? Number one, Python is a programming language, but it's regarded as a top programming languages in the world, widely used in the fields such as artificial intelligence, the machine learning, the data science, and also the web development. But this is not the only programming languages that is actually existing in the world. We have programming like C++, we have R, we have C#, and the others. But this one, I want to take you through, guys, the Python. So as I said, that Python is one of the top programming languages in the world, and it's used in the field of AI. And what do you mean by AI? AI is referred to, it's an artificial intelligence. And these AI, actually, these are just machines. They're just machines that mimic human intelligence. The machine that mimic human intelligence and behavior. This is called the artificial intelligence and human behavior. So, and again, it's also widely used in the field of machine learning. In machine learning, we have things like supervised learning, and unsupervised learning, and also it's used in the field of data science, which is also part of this. Data science also include the machine learning, but in data science we talk about natural language processing, the deep learning, which has to it's also a part of the AI. And also we have what you call the generative AI. This has to do with the issue of transformers, like the chat GPT. This is just the generative processing transformers, and I'm saying generative pre-trained transformers. And also in the issue of web development, those who are dealing with web development, particularly most of them, they use Python. And also I even forget to mention even Java, the JavaScript. So it's one of the programming language. But however, here I want to take you through Python, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this Python, you need to be able to know how to actually install Python, its installation, and also how to use what we call the Jupyter notebook. So we have something called Jupyter notebook, which can, this Jupyter notebook can be accessed from something called Anaconda navigator. So which we'll talk about this, and we're still gonna use other platform like something called Google Colab. Those who are acquainted with programming, they can also attest to that. And within this, ladies and gentlemen, I want to also take you through some of the functions that I found in Python, particularly when we're going to use Jupyter Notebook. We have something called the print statement. Also, I'll take you through the introduction of variable, the data types in Python, the data structures, the input functions, and also what are the functions that are found behind data structures. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without wasting time, the platform that I'm actually sharing this is it's called a Jupyter notebook. As you can see here, is just written the Jupyter notebook. So this is actually the IDE for Python. It's one of the IDE that is used for Python. For example, if you're using R, the IDE for R will be the studio. The studio will it's called the R studio. This is a platform to use the R programming languages, but under Python we use something called Jupyter Notebook. So this is an example of the Jupyter Notebook. Already I've installed it in my machine, but if you want to start with programming, particularly for Python, so what you're gonna do is you have to go through. You can go to Google. So yeah, just go to Google. Then you just type Anaconda, like what I'm just saying. Then once you type Anaconda, the first part here, it will show that this is an Anaconda navigator. So if you click this, it will actually take you through the installation in your computer. So, however, I'm not gonna install it because already I have it in my in my system. Then you're gonna come here to free download. I hope you can see what I'm actually pointing. So you're gonna come here and do the free download, depending on your type of your type of the machine, whether you are on Windows or Mac OS and others. So it only depends with the machine that you're actually using. Then from there, after the installation, then you'll see this kind of a symbol here. So this will take you through the installation up until you'll see something like this, something written in this format. Okay, let me just, okay, you'll see this symbol in whatever you have installed in your computer. Then you'll be able to open this Jupyter notebook. But however, when you fail, you can still do the Google. You can Google online. It will show you how to install the Anaconda navigator. Then from there, you will still be able to use your Jupyter notebook. So already here, this is my Jupyter notebook. I want to take you through this interface of the Jupyter notebook. If you're still new, if you are new in the platform, then if you can check here, this is called the file. So you have the file, the editing, the view, the running, the kernel, the setting, and the help. But now when you look at this is the part for saving. If you want to save, yes, is the part when you want to delete some of the aspect. This is the part for want to run. We'll talk about this. There is this part here. This is called a code. But this part here has two options. If, for example, let's say here, let me just say I want to add another part here. Can let me take it up here. Let it be the first one. Okay, it's just an example. So if I want to, let's say I type something here. This is now, it shows that whatever I'm typing is now gonna be a code. But if I click here and say, come to what is called the markdown, it means under markdown, it allows me to write everything in a text form. For example, if I want to comment in Python, when we comment, you use hash. This is a symbol for making comments. So for example, if I want to say introduction to Python by, let's say, ambiguous. I'm just giving an example. So already, if I run this under this, if I do the running, so this is a symbol for running, already it will show that this was just a text. But if I do away with this, if I do away with this, it will still wanna run. It will still gonna run because I've done it as a markdown. But if I make, let's say, two hashtags, it will reduce the size. Let's first do this. Let me run it again. You can easily see that, okay, it's just, okay. Let's do the running. You see that the text, it's kind of like big, but if I put two hashtags, you'll see that the text is now reduced. You see, it keeps on reducing the more I add the number of hashtags. So, but if I change this to code, same information, but I change it to code and try to run, then you'll see what's going to happen. Okay, fine. So no, I did not change it. Let's change it to code, then do the running. Still, it will still give me the result because this was a comment. But if I do away with this and do the running, then it will tell me that this is an invalid information. So which means it's saying that this is a syntax error. It's not allowed if you're doing the coding. But we will talk about this. But if you do, if I put the codes or the quotation marks, if I put the quotation mark here, okay, let me put the quotation mark and try to run, then it will run because it says this is now a string, which we'll talk about this. So we'll talk about this, ladies and gentlemen. So right, without wasting time, I think I have taken you through the Jupyter notebook. Now we can start with the presentation. Number one, I've already explained what is Python and how it works. And I've already explained the issue of installation. Let's now deep dive into the issue of taking you through the issue of print statements. I want to take you through the printing statements. Right, taking you through the print statement. Python is one of the programming language which comes with its own libraries, right, or its own function. Like in Python, there's a function called print. This function is actually used to print the variables, or actually to print object depending on whatever you wanted it to present. But now, before we do this, if we are talking about, okay, can I just explain first? Let me just talk about the data types before I talk about the function print. Right, under Python, we have kinds of data types. The first one is called a string. The second one is called an integer. And the third one is called a float. But we still have others, which you call the Boolean. We still have the Booleans. These are also data types. We have things like complex numbers. Booleans, we are referring to things that has to do with true or false. These are examples of Boolean. Right, when we say something is an integer, it means here we are talking about the numerical data type. The numerical data types, here we talk about things like an integer, and also here we have float. Integers, we are referring to numbers that are actually whole numbers. If we are dealing with whole numbers, these are examples of integers according to Python. But numbers that are in decimal, Python take it as float. These are float numbers. So these are float numbers. But any text that actually used in a quotation mark, a text that is used in quotation mark, this is actually referred to as a string. A string is just a text or any object that is used inside the quotation mark, whether we're using double quotation mark or single quotation mark, then these are examples of strings. For example, if I do this, if I just write, let's say I write 11. So obvious, if I run this, the 11, if I say is just a number, but if I say I wanted to check the type of that number, so if I say the type of this, so it will tell me that this is an integer. It shows that this is an integer. It's an integer, but once I say 11.5, and I check the type, then to tell me that this is a float. So it's very, 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 very important. But if I put semi quotation marks there, I apologize. If I put quotation marks, the codes in the number, that number is no longer a float. Now, if we do the running, it will now show that this is a string. Why? Because we used quotation marks. So once you start to use the quotation marks in your text or your number, this now becomes a string. So it means whatever you want to represent as a string in Python, you need to use quotation mark, whether double of them or single, then there is no any difference. So it's very, 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 very important. For example, if we say, for example, if I say I have, let's say that 11, if I say type, I want to check the type of this data, then this would be an integer. But once I put the quotation mark, whether there is double quotation, let's say we put double quotation or single quotation, now it will tell us that this is now a string. So it's very important to be able to understand the data types in Python. Very important that whatever you enter in decimal, the Python will recognize that as a float. But if you're just inserting a number which is not in a quotation mark, then that is actually a float. That is actually a float. So, but when you talk about the issue of Boolean, for example, if I say, I don't know if it will work, then if I say, let's check the word true, it is a built-in, like it's a function that already Python uses. For example, if I say type, then it will tell me that this is a Boolean. It's a Boolean, true or false. This is an example of a Boolean. And one other thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that when you are dealing with Python, you need to be able to know that Python is very case sensitive. It is case sensitive. So when you are doing whatever you are typing, you need to make sure that it correlates. For example, if we were to use the issue of the, instead of, let's say here, if we do the running here, if I say type, it will tell me that this is a Boolean. But if I use small f here and I say run, then it will tell me, I think it will produce an error here. It will produce an error. Why? It says false is not defined. Because if you want this to be defined, it means Python does not recognize that false. Why? Because of the typing, the small f, Python does not recognize. So you need to be able, you must be careful when you are dealing with Python. It's one of the programming language that is very case sensitive when you are dealing with. So these are the things that one must be able to understand when you are dealing with Python. And again, ladies and gentlemen, let's now go back to the issue of printing. Right, the issue of printing, for example, if I say print 11, you are commanding Python to give you the output. But if you just say, for example, print, let's say I use like something like this, print 11, already Python will give me an error to say the print is not defined. Why? Because I've used the capital letter P, so which means I need to change that so that Python can be able to recognize that. You see, it will print 11. For example, if I wanted to say, let's say we say print hello world. I think this is one of the usually print hello world. So let's do the printing, then we'll say print hello world. But if I don't put quotation marks here, if I don't put quotation marks, then and say print, then it will give me an error because it does not recognize this hello world. And so they said, you see, it says invalid text, perhaps you forgot a comma. So it means now here, it's either if you're doing this, you are assigning it to a variable, which we're going to talk about this. So these are the things that we'll talk about. So if I do this, then this will be this. You see, it shows why it's recognizing this hello world as a what? As a string. It's recognizing the hello world as a string. So it takes this as a string. So it's very important to be able to know the data types in Python, the data types in Python, ladies and gentlemen. For example, if I wanted to say, if I wanted to say, okay, let's just say I say you have a name, then you tell me that, okay, your name is, okay, just an example, Ambikwa. Then if you say print, then in the quotation mark, then you're gonna say my name is, then outside this you put the name, then it will give you the result. My name is, then let's do the printing. You see, it's telling you that you are saying my name is Ambiko. Why are you doing this? This has to do with something called introduction to variable. So what is going to happen here? Let me just try to explain this so that everyone can understand. If you say name, it's Ambiko, already it means this name here, according to Python, it takes this as a variable. So this is a variable, and this is an assigning. It's an assign. It's actually assigning this variable. So what does this? It takes this string Ambikwa and it store it inside a variable called name. Already it has stored into the variable called name. So what Python, like if you say name equals to, which is an assigning operator, equals to, then inside this you say Ambikwa, then you write. It means now this Ambikwa will now be stored in an object, in a variable called name. Already it's stored in a variable called name. But now immediately once you start to say my name is, then you display that name, then it will tell you that, okay, now you are saying we need to call that object which was stored in the variable name. It will say my name is Ambikwa. Then again, there is still another way of doing this. We can still do this by using something called f-string operator. We can use something called f-string. So what you do is just say print, then you put an f, small f, then quotation marks, whether they're single or double, then you can say my name is, then in curly brackets, inside the curly brackets, then you can now put that function that say name. Then it's still gonna give the same function. This is called then f string. You see, it says my name is inside the f string. So it's very, very, very important. Which means if I can change this, let's say I change this to say, okay, it's, let's say I have what is this? Let's say this is the salary. Let's call this salary. So what it does, it means it will take this 20,000 as an integer and it will store it inside what? Inside a variable called salary. Then from there, if you want to print out, then we'll say my salary, it's just an example. My salary is, let's say I want to display this in rands. Let's say I want to display this in rands. Then if I want to use the first approach, then I'll just say comma salary. Then I'm calling that. So if I print, then it will tell me that my salary is okay. So it means I've done a mistake here. Okay, let me check what's going to happen. Yeah. Okay. My salary, it's salary. Okay. Let me copy this here. Okay. Copy this and check what's going to happen now. It says invalid. Salary equals to 20,000. Oh, okay. No, I understand why. Like I've left a space in between. That's why it's giving me error. Okay, so which is fine. We're not supposed to leave a space because it also count that space. So it means now you see now it says it has stored the 20,000 into a variable called salary. So already it has stored that 20,000 into a variable called salary. So this is one of the things that you need to understand. Then, but if I do the printing order, let's say I wanted to check the type of the data type there. So it means you're gonna say type salary. So you wanted to check the type salary. Then let's do the running. You see, it shows that this is an integer. It shows that this is an integer. So let's do the printing. It says my salary is 20,000. So this is just the function of when you're using the printing. But if I wanted to use an F string, it means I have to put everything in one function. Then this will be okay. This would be okay. Then now we're gonna say my salary is what in rands. Then now yeah, I'm gonna put salary, case sensitive salary. Then we do the printing. It will still give me the same. So this is one of the function that is very important when you are dealing with data types in Python. All right, again, ladies and gentlemen, I've explained the data types and how the printing statement works. So it's very important when you are dealing with Python to be able to know the data types that are used in Python, and also how the assignment operator is being done. And again, let me talk about this assignment, ladies and gentlemen. When you are dealing with an assignment in Python, as I said, Python is very case sensitive, and there are some rules behind the assignment. For example, if I start with a number and say one salary, I want to give you something. If I say one salary and do the running, it will give me an error to say this is an invalid decimal. Why? The assignment or any variable must not start with a number. The assignment in Python, you cannot assign a variable, or a variable cannot start with a number. Variable cannot start with a number. If it starts with a number, it will always produce an error. Cannot start with a number. So it must not start with a number. Are we together? And again, if you want to, it can either start with an underscore, something called underscore. It can either start, for example, if I can put an underscore where there is a one here, just an example. Let's say I put an underscore, there is the underscore, then I say salary, then it can still work. But if I say, let's say one underscore, and let's check one underscore, it will still give me an error because why? I've started with a number. It does not allow anyone, like it does not allow the variable to start with a number. And again, in terms of, for example, if I say new salary, I want to give you an example. If I say new salary, this will give me an error in Python. Python says if you want to separate two words, you need to separate them with an underscore. You must put an underscore. Otherwise, if you are not putting an underscore, then you make sure that these words are joined. If they're joined, then it means it will not produce an error. But if you want them not to like, if you want to separate them, you need to put an underscore between them. So once you put an underscore, then it will not produce any error. It will give you the result that you want. If you separate them with an underscore, it will give you the result that you want. So these are the rules that you need to follow when you are dealing with Python, ladies and gentlemen, especially in terms of assigning, like in terms when we are writing variables. And hence I said that Python is very case sensitive. So you need to be careful when you are dealing with Python. Right. Again, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. I think I've introduced you some of the components of Python. Let's now proceed. I've explained the issue of let's check, installation, print statement, introduction to variables, and again, data types. If you say string, integers, and float. Right. There's something that I want also to address here. Let's say maybe under the new, then you put double equal signs. I want to show you something. Once you put double equal sign, then you say run. It will tell you that the new salary is equal. It will tell you you are now creating a what? A Boolean. You are now creating something called Boolean. We'll talk about this. It's called the comparison operator. That's why if we type here, let's say we say it will say this is an integer, because you're just saying the new salary is equals to 20,000. Then when you print, for example, if I say let's print it will say that my salary, because you are saying you are assigning, you are making the new salary to be equals to 20,000. So this is an assignment operators, which we'll talk about. But now let's now proceed, ladies and gentlemen. Right, then again, we need to be able to understand the data structure. I think I've explained the issue of data types, print statement. Now let's talk about data structures. There are three kinds of data structures that are actually widely used in Python. We have things like a list. We have things like dictionaries, which we'll talk about them. The dictionaries, and the last one we have what you call the tuples. These are widely used in Python. Right. In terms of list, a list is a data structure in Python which we use the square brackets. These are symbol of list. These are a symbol of a list. And within this list, we actually use a comma to separate the item or the element inside this list. So it means all the time when you want to write down a list operator, you must always use the square brackets. You must use square brackets. They're actually used by using, like they're represented by using the square brackets when you are representing a list. Then you also have something called dictionary. Dictionary, we use what you call the curly brackets. They're actually represented in curly brackets. So this is a symbol for a list. So I'm saying for a dictionary. And this dictionary also are separated. The items in a dictionary, they're also separated by a comma. So it's very, 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 very important. Then again, you need to be able to know the tuples. Tuple, actually, we use close brackets, open brackets. We use these brackets like this. So it's very important. This is the symbol for tuples. This is the symbol for dictionary. This is a symbol for the list. So these are the three types of data types that are important in Python, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're going to talk about this time and again. All right. First of all, let me talk about a list. Let me talk about list. It's just an example. Right. Let me talk about a list first. So if I do this, let's say I say, let's call this data. This is an example. Then once I use close brackets like this, means I'm now dealing with a list. That's why, let's say I just want to represent this as an empty list for now. So we're going to have an empty, it's just a commenting empty list. Let's run this. If I run this, then I wanted to know the type of this. I will say type of the data. Let me just say type of the data. It will tell me that this is a list. This is now a list, ladies and gentlemen. It's telling me that you are now dealing with list. But if I use curly brackets, it's an empty list. So let's now say this is an empty dictionary. It's an empty dictionary. So let's do the running. If I run this, then it will tell me that this is a dictionary. It's now a dictionary. It's telling me that you are now dealing with a dictionary. But if I use the open brackets like this, then this will be, sometimes they call it, but it's fine. We'll talk about this. Is a tuple. Let's call this a tuple. So, okay, it's typing error. You see, it shows me that this is a tuple. So you need to be able to know or to be able to differentiate between list, dictionaries, and also tuples. So let's now start with the list. Let's say, remember here, I just created an empty list. So, but let's say I wanted to use just a list that I have values. For example, let's say I have 2, is 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, just an example, 12. Then let's say maybe somewhere here, then instead of putting, then I say 12, 18. So you see now in terms of this, from whatever we have entered there, already Python knows that whatever you use, if you use a number, let's say, for example, let me just add another one here. Let's say we have 12.5. So already it knows that you are now dealing with a dictionary. But inside this dictionary, you have different types of data. So if you look at this, the first one, the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, this will now be recorded as an integer. But this one, because it is in a quotation mark, then this will be a string, and this one will be a float. But the whole set is now regarded as it's regarded as a list. Let's do the running, ladies and gentlemen. If I say, let's do the running, and again, let's do something called type. You see, it shows that this is the type. Then now, I want to tell you something very important when you are dealing with a list. Inside a list, you can do things like this. We can have the function called len. We can use len. Len is just a function to count the number of elements that are in the list. So if I say len data, it will actually tell me how many elements are in the list. You see, it's telling me that there are only 8 elements in the list. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But if I say, let's say I wanted to add an element in the list. So we're going to use a function called append. Append actually has to be small letter, not the capital letter. So it should be append. Even the len should be. So this, even the remove, pop, yes, we'll talk about this. Insert and extend. And also the issue of slicing, we'll talk about that. So if I say I wanted to use append function, right? The append function is just a function that is used to add an element into the list. Let's say I wanted to add maybe another number here. So I will say data.append. So if I use the append, then let's say I wanted to put, let's say 100 inside the list. Then if I run this, it already knows that. So if I say the data, or I say print data, I can also use, say, print data. So if I say print data, it will show that you see, we have now added another value inside an element in the list. So this is the function that we use to append. So append, it's a function that is used in a list to actually add an element in the list. So this is the function, a very important, ladies and gentlemen. So the append function, the len, you now understand. Let's talk about the issue of removing. The removing, This has to do with you remove an element in a list. For example, if I wanted to remove that 100, that way, the element that we insert, so I can say data dot remove, but I might need to specify the value that I wanted to remove. So it means now it's going to say, then now let's print again. Let's do the printing. Print dot data. So you see now it has removed the element that we have inserted, so we can also use it. And I think even you can use, let's say, delete. Let's say let me just say we do the, okay, let me just leave this. Then let's say we add another one. For example, we do the appending again. So we say data dot append dot append. We're appending append 100. Let's just say 102. Then now with that, let's go and check the data, print the data. Then let's do the printing. You see it is added 103 in the list. What if now, let's say, let's try to use the function del. If I say del, or should I say delete, then let's say delete 100 or 103, then you want to check something. So you see, it will say that the list object has no attribute called delete. But how about if I say del, instead of saying delete, it says there's a syntax error here. So which means now we can either use remove, because I think maybe with a delete, it will need us to say this. Okay, just an example. Let me check something here. I wanted to check something here. Okay, it says error. So it means you have to use the remove to remove whatever we have inserted. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the issue of, if you go back and say what is the length of the data, it will tell me that now we have how many? We have 9 elements, because we have added one of them in the list. So let's do the running. Let's run this. Let's do the running. Let's run. You see, it says now we have 9 elements. Then another function is to do what you call pop. Pop is just to remove the element, but in a list by the position. I think we're going to talk about this. When we talk about the issue of removing by the position, let me explain you, or let me just say something about this. Actually, in a dictionary, in a list, every element that is in a list has its own position. It has a position. And in terms of the position, according to Python, it's assigning every element in a list with an index, which actually starts with 0. For example, if we say we have like what I've already explained here. So if we say this is at index, is the first number is 2. This is Python takes this as index 0. So it's index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4, 5, 6, 7. So no. It's a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes. So already this is the index 0. It always starts with index 0. Or you can say -1, -2, -3, -4, and so forth. For example, let's say I wanted to retrieve only, let's say I wanted to retrieve, it's just an example. I want to retrieve the first in data. So I will say index in a square brackets, then I will put 0. So once I do this, when I say print, it also show me that the value is 2. But if I say 3, then it will take me to it says 2. I'm saying to say the value is 6. But I say in -1, it will print the last number. It will print the last number, which is that. Or if I say -7, then -7, it will now print the fourth number. No, the second number from left, which is 4. So it's very important to be able to understand the issue of indexing. Right. For example, if I wanted to say, if I say data from, this is an example, from 0 to 3, you'll see what it will display. From 0 to 3, it takes numbers from 0 to 1, 1 to 2 only. So it means if I say from 0 to 3, it means it does not include the last value, the last index, this one. So it takes numbers from 0 up until 3 minus 1, which is 2. So if I say data index from 0 up until 5, it means it will print only numbers that are from index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, not excluding 5, not including 5. Let's check that. So it means it will print out 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 only. So let's check that. Let's check that. So we're gonna have data from 0 to 5. No, to 5. To 5. So I'm only slicing numbers from index 0 to 5. So you see that will show only 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10 only within. But if I put 6, it means it will index only from 0 up until 4. So it's very important. How about if I say from 1 here, instead of putting 0? This is an example. Obviously, if I do this, it will only show numbers from 1 up until 4. So it's very important in Python to know the issue of slicing. So as I was talking about, I was saying in the issue of pop, Python can also remove the element in a list by the position. Let's say let's say it's just an example. I wanted to add, this is just an example. I wanted to add something. Okay, it's just an example. Let's say data.append, append 500 into the list. Then let's print the data. We want to check the result now. Print the data. You see, it shows that we have appended or we have inserted 500 into the list. So how does this work? For example, let's say it's just an example. Okay, let's say I wanted to do the popping. The popping, instead of just removing, let's just use the pop. But with the pop function, it says you remove data.pop. You remove your element by looking at the position. Look at this. This is at the last position. If I put -1, remember I said it's either in terms of the indexing of a list. So this is actually at position 0. This is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or can say -1, -2, -3, -4, and so forth. So it means I either say index 8 or I use -1. So because I want the last one, I want the last element. So if I say 8, it will pop that 8. Or if I say -1, then just use -1. Then I say data.pop. You see, it shows that now the value that it has selected there, it is the -1. But now let's look at this. Let's say because it has shown that it says 500, let's now print the data. If we print the data, you can easily see that the 500 is not there. The 500 is not there because we removed the 500 by what? By looking at its position. So this is the function used in Python to remove an element in a list using a position. It's either you use the remove. When you use the remove, it means you are removing the element. But if you are removing like you want to remove an element by the position, it means you must use the pop function. You must use the pop function. So it's very important to be able to know this. Then again, we can still look at this. We have something called the insert. Insert is also a function used in Python, particularly in the list, which says you insert the element or an item at the ith position or at the index. For example, if I do this, let's say, if I say, so it means you index by looking at the position. Let's say I say, let's look at our data. You see, we have one data which is actually a string. So if I say data dot insert set, then now we need to also, when we are using an insert, let me just explain this. You need to first specify it is an insert, then you must specify the position and the item you want to insert. So it means now this would be, so let's say this would be, let's say, remember I said this is either the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so or minus 1, 2. So let's say I say at position 6, then now, and I wanted to change this to be 18. Is this an example? Let's say insert this. So let's run this and say data. So you'll see something now. You see that it has actually inserted an element now to be at position number 6. So it means now it's just adding an element. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. At 6, it will be just between that. But if I say insert at the last position, let's just say, is this an example? Let's say minus 1. So you'll see what it will do. Let's do the running. You see it has added, it has inserted the 18 at the what? At the last position. So these are the things that you need to be able to know when you are dealing with a list, especially when you are dealing with lists, especially in Python. This is one of the most important functions in Python. So you need to be able to know how to use this. Right. Another thing very important, ladies and gentlemen, is the issue of, let's just check. It is the issue of extend. Actually, the function extend is used to combine list, actually to concatenate list. For example, let's say I have 2 lists here. Let's say df, this is an example. I create another list. Let's say this time around, I'll just say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, let's just say 12, 16, yeah, just say 20, 24, 26. It's just an example. So I've created 2 types of the list here. I'm saying the dictionary. But if I wanted to concatenate them, I will say data.extend. Then inside this, I have to put another list here. So if I say this, then let's say data. Now we'll check what has happened. You see, now with this extend, it has done what? It has combined, or it has concatenated the 2 lists to be one. So if I say now, what is the len, the elements that are in the list now, then we'll have this. But what if I say data equals to, okay, data divided by the length of the data. This is an example. Let's check what it will give us. It will say it is the error. Okay, so now it says it is unsupported. Okay, fine. We'll talk about this, but we can, yeah, I think later on we'll do something called the we'll do something called the for loop. Yeah, I think if an execution, but we'll talk about this, which say for I in data. then the I. But okay, it's fine. We'll talk about this, guys. Let me not confuse you for now. Let me not confuse you for now. Okay, then now another thing is the issue of, okay, already we spoke about this, the issue of slicing. Remember, I said we can do the slicing of a list by using an index. Remember, we are indexing starting from zero, and the last one, we can also use negative numbers. So this is in the context of list. But now, let me now talk about dictionaries, very important. Dictionary is also one of the data structures in Python, which is very important. I think we have seen it when I was doing my data analysis in the customer chaining project. Somehow, I created the models using this thing called dictionary. Remember, I said dictionary, we always use curly brackets. Let me explain something. Inside these curly brackets, we usually use something called the keys and values. So we have the key value pair. We actually use something called key value pair. It uses something called the key value pair in a quotation mark. The keys should be in a quotation mark with the semicolon, then and a value and a comma. For example, if I say, let's say I wanted to know, okay, fine. Now I wanted to represent a dictionary. I now want to use a dictionary instead of a list. So I'm going to say dictionary. Let me call it dictionary one. So I'm going to use this symbol. This is now an empty. If I put the quotation mark and semicolon, then comma, quotation mark, semicolon, then comma is the quotation mark. It can be semicolon. Then if I do this, let's say I wanted to say, let's say we want to know, we are comparing vegetables. It's just an example. Yeah, we are looking at the fruits, not next to the vegetable. So we have three kinds of fruits. We have the apple, and we have mango, just an example. And the other one is banana. Okay, it's just an example. Let's say within this we have 500 apples and 400 bananas and let's say 40. Like, okay, let's say 300. Instead of, let's say we want to keep on changing this, we can use something called dictionary. So in a dictionary, in the quotation, when I have to say apple, this is the apple, then here we put the value. The value is 500. So again, I'm going to say mango, then the value is 400. Then banana, then the value is 300. So let's do the running. This is an example. So you see this will now give us an output. So if I say type dot dict one, and let's check what will give us. It will tell us this is a dictionary. But now look at this. I want to talk about something very important. So in a dictionary, you must always represent your dictionary in the form of a key and a value, key value pairs. So it must be a key and a value. It must be a key and a value. For example, if I wanted to know what would be the amount of apple there, then it's either I do this, listen to me very well. I need to call that dictionary, but mentioning the what? The key. For example, if I say dict one quotation mark, then I put the, I say apple, so it's a case sensitive apple, and let's do the printing. So you see now it's telling me that in terms of your keys, by calling your key, then it will tell you that the apple is 500. But if I change this and say mango, then say 4. Then how about I say banana, it will say 300. But what if I wanted to change maybe banana to be something else? It means with the same, I'll say banana equals to, let's say I want to change it to 500. So it means it will change that. So now let's now display the ticked one. And now it shows that you see it just changed the banana. So it means you can change the values of your keys by looking at, like, by using the keys. All right. Another way would be, let's say, for example, let's say we want to try the functions that I've explained here. Let's start with the length of the dict. It says that there are 3 items. So, but how about if I say dict one dot keys? There's a function called keys. Look at this. It will tell me what are your keys. Your keys is apple, mangoes, and banana. So it means the dictionary has a function called keys to display your keys in the dictionary. How about if I say values keys dot say dictionary dot values? It will only print the values under the dictionary. So, but how about if I wanted to add those values? If I wanted to add the values inside that, I'm going to use something called sum. Let's try it. It will tell me that you are now adding 1,400 values which are in here. So you can easily see that we can do the addition inside this. But how about if I say dot key dot sum? Let's check something here. Dot keys now. Dot keys dot sum. Let's check what it's going to give us. It says it cannot. It is unsupported because now you want to try to add the integers. So it's not going to allow that. It only allows when you are dealing with values. It only allows when you are dealing with values. But now, can we do the appending under the, what is this? The dictionary. Let's try to check that. Can we do the appending when we're using a dictionary? Let's check that. Let's say dict one dot append. Remember what were you dealing with there? We were dealing with where we're appending the list by the value. So now if I do this, if I say, is this an example, append, let's say I wanted to say Pierre with, like, okay, let's say I'm using just an example. Yeah, let's just use Pierre. Then now the value, let's say the value is 600. I just want to see something. Let's do the appending using this. It does not take that into consideration. Now, how about if I say append 600? This is an example. You see, it says the dictionary has no attribute called appending. So it means the append cannot work under the what? Under the dictionary. So it means the only way you can use your dictionary is, like, in terms of dictionary, to append, maybe just, for example, if I say dict, let's say dict one, then I just create another list here. Let's call this pair. I want to give an example. Let's say equals to 600. I want to check you something by assigning. So let's say equals to, you see now it is going to add whatever. You see it has now assigned. So it means this is the function that we use to insert, to assign values or keepers in the dictionary. So you can assign, and you can okay, for example, if you want to do it's just an example. Okay, okay. Then how about if I want to, okay, Let's say instead of doing this, I say maybe by trying to do the indexing, let's just assume this is just an example. Let's just assume this is index 0, index 1, index 2. I want to check something. Let's say we're doing this and say dict 1, then the last one. We're trying to index and check what's going to give it. So it's giving us an error. It says it is not actually allowed. But if I say 2, so then let's do this. You see, it says it's not allowed. It's not allowed. So you cannot do the indexing under this. But now, okay, let's say we have, let's say I have the 0 of 0. This is an example. Okay, I want to check something. You see, it shows that we cannot do any indexing. We cannot do any indexing. Right, then now, it means now, for example, if I want to display the value, I can only display the value by looking at the what? At the, okay, if I say dix.values, let me say put -1 here as an example, says error. Okay, all right, so it means you can either get all the values, okay, let me just say this. Okay, let me just say by indicating the indexing. It's giving me an error, so you cannot do the indexing. Right, okay, let me just say it's 0 here. Still giving me the errors, okay, fine. So, right, then now it means it shows that under the dictionary cannot do A. So you can either add, but you must be careful. When you call, you can either call this by looking at the key. You use the key to display the value. So if you use the key to display the value, then you'll be able to get it. For example, if I say dict 1 dot pull, it's just an example. Let's say print, it would say Apple is not defined. It means I must always put the square brackets inside it. So let's say I wanted to add another one. Let's say guava, this is an example. Let's say guava, I have how many? I have, okay, let's just say I put equal sign and say 500 and check what it will give us. It will say guava is not inside because you are saying, like if you use double equal sign, you are just saying it's the guava equals 500 there. It will say it's not there. But if I do this, means now we are assigning, we are adding the key value called guava, the key with its value 500. So in the dictionary. So this is very important. So you can easily see that when we're dealing with dictionary and list, dictionary are mutable, so which means you can change its element, you can do the changing in its element. But there's only one thing that, okay, it's fine. Let's talk about the issue of tuples. You'll see that there's one thing, there's something different in terms of a tuple. So let's say we have TP, let's call it tuple. So I'll just say use the, so let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Is this an example? 14, let's do the running. Let's run. So we say type dot TP. So we wanted to check the type. You see, it shows that this is a tuple. So let's say I wanted to index. I want to do the indexing like what I have said earlier. So let's say I want to do an indexing. So let's call this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, or you can say -1, -2. Let's say I wanted to index the value that is at position 5 using the tuple. So I want to check this. Let's say TP in indexing is number 5, or you can say -2. Then let's do the printing. it will say 12. It will say 12. You see, in terms of the tuple, you can index your values. For example, if I say, what will be the last value there, which is -1, it will say 14. What will be the first value using a tuple, 0, by indexing? It will say 2. And then what will be, let's say, the third value? The third value, which is at position 2, it would be 6. You see that using tuples, you can do the indexing. But how about if I wanted to change one value inside this? Let's say I wanted to change an element inside the tuple. For example, I wanted to change the element that is in position 2. I want to replace 6 to be maybe 8 or to be 15. Let's check what it's going to have. It will say tuple object does not support the item assignment. So it means when you are dealing with a tuple, and a tuple is one of the data structure that is actually immutable. So it means you cannot change its element. You cannot change its element. You cannot change any element in the change the element in the tuple. So it means you cannot add anything inside it. You cannot add. For example, let's say I wanted to append. Let's say I wanted to append a number here. Okay, let's check. You can change. Okay, let's say I wanted to append. Let's check the issue of appending. Appending is just to add, right? Let's check if tuple can do that. Let's just say tp.append. Let's say I wanted to append 20. Let's check if tuple can do that. It says tuple has no function called append. So it means you cannot change the elements that are in the tuple. So it means tuples are immutable. You cannot change any element in the tuple. So it's very important, ladies and gentlemen, to understand this. And so here I was just explaining the introduction to Python in terms of how to install Anaconda navigator, and how to use a Jupyter notebook, how to work with the print statement, how to deal with the data types, which we call the strings, the integers, and the float. Remember, I said strings should always be in quotation marks. Then the difference between data structures, which are very important. We have list, we have dictionaries, we have tuples. Tuples are immutable. Then, but the list and the dictionary, you can add something, you can change something in the dictionaries. But under tuple, they are immutable, but the list and the dictionary are immutable. So no, they are mutable. You can change the element in the list and also in the dictionary. Then now another case, ladies and gentlemen, is the issue of using a function called an input function. Is very important. Input function. I think when we are dealing with an input function, this is just a function that allows you to input. For example, if I can say, okay, to your name, let's call it an input function, or just call it input. This is a function. This is just a function. That's why if I say to you, and okay, for example, if I run this and say input, then I run this, and it will tell me that, okay, just a minute. Okay, while it's still taking place, so let's say I wanted to say enter your, or what is your name? Is your name? Then in a question mark. Then from there, say name. input what is your surname? Then age, input how old are you? This is a question mark. Then now, what is another one? Okay, let's close this because it will take some time. Then siblings. Many siblings we have. Then now, okay, let's say I wanted this to at the end to print name. Okay. Then I'll just say welcome. Welcome. Name. Okay. So this is just an input function, but you must be precise because if I say the name, usually the name should be in a string format. So I will have to say string. Then I must put a string inside because if I don't do this, it means it will, for example, let's just say we run this. Let's say I want us to run this input function. So let's do the running. Cell not exit due to the pending input. Okay. Let's just say, let's do the running again. Okay, let's do the restarting. Let's restart this kernel. I want to restart the kernel so that it can start over. Okay. All right, let's do the running again. Oh, because it says unknown. Okay, that's why it's taking time. Okay, fine. You see, it says, what is your name? So it's asking me to enter my name. Okay, I'll say Ambikwa. This is an example. Then it says, what is your surname? Then I'll say Mashala. Then how old are you? I'm just let's say I'm 10 years old. How many siblings do you have? None. You see, then then when I print it, then to write, okay, there's something wrong here. Welcome and be commercialist. But now imagine if I wanted to give, because sometimes someone might say, if you run this, you say, what is your name? Then it says 0. It's 0 a name. What is your surname? One. What is your surname? One. Then how old are you? Zero. How many siblings are you? Negative one. You see, this becomes a redundant information. So it means you need to guide it to say, okay, fine. I want to, under the input for name, this thing I want it to be a string. If you do not, if you enter something that is not a string, then to produce an error. The same name already should also be a string. I'm directing it to say everything. An age, obviously, it's an integer. It cannot be a float. And then, okay, let's say this should be an integer. The number of siblings is also an integer. Then if I say okay, distance input, how many kilometers is from your home to mall? Okay, is this an example? To, let's say, to, this is an example, Maponya Mall. Is this an example? To Maponya Mall. So let's do the entering. Remember, okay, I will say this already can be a float, because remember it can be a decimal number. Okay, so let's do the running. So already, if I say, what is your name? I'll say Ambigua. So imagine I say 0. Then already it will take that as a what? As a string. It will take that as a string. But if I say, for example, if I say integer, this is an example. Say run. Come on, come on. Oh, it's still taking. Oh, it's still taking. So let me just complete this. Okay, it's fine. Right, let's run this again. So you imagine you said name integer, then I said 4,5. So just an example. It will produce an error here. Are you there? Right. Then now, in terms of this, then we can say, okay, let me just try to interrupt. Oh, it was still saying, okay, let me just type this. Okay, I wanted to complete something. Right, let's rerun this. Remember I said I wanted this to be a string. So it means gonna say input. Say, what is your name? Then I say Ambigua. Just an example. Say name Mash. How old are you? Let's just say 28. How many siblings do you have? We say 1. Kilometers from your home to mall, let's say it's 20.5. Then I run this. So welcome and become much. So this is just a function that we actually use in Python, like to input things. So it's very, very, very important to be able to know this. This is just an introduction. So let's just check what we have covered up to here. We went through the installation, the print statements, and don't forget that Python is case sensitive. Introduction to variable. For example, if I say data equals to, let's say, boy. So it means this is a string. and this string will be assigned inside a variable called data. So this is the introduction to variables. Data types, we spoke about strings, integers, and float. Float is just decimals, list, dictionary, and tuple. I think you are now able to differentiate between the list. The square brackets, these are the list, which are also mutable, and the dictionary, which uses key value pair. Keys value pair, the keys should be in a quotation marks. And then we also have the tuples. Tuples are immutable. So you cannot change the element inside this. You can do the slicing, the indexing, but you cannot, they are immutable. So I think we spoke about this. The input functions, we spoke about them. And the data structures function, we spoke about the length, the append, the remove. How about if I want to check the issue of the length? Let's check how many items are in the tuple. Is just one. I wanted to check if it's the tuple can count. We can be able to count elements that are in a tuple. So let's try to do this. Let's say we try to do this. So we're gonna have length of the tuple. Let's say the length of the tuple. Let's check if the tuple can do that. I think we restart, so it means I have to redefine this and say length. You see, the length function can still work in the tuple. We can tell us how many elements are in the tuple, but we cannot change the element in the tuple. We can change element in the dictionary. We can change element in the list, but not in the tuple. So I believe you are following. Thank you very much for listening. This is the end of the session. I believe.